Okay guys, so today's lesson is 4-6. We are doing square roots and cube roots. Before we start, I want to show you on the calculator how to plug in square root and cube root. So the first thing you do is make sure your calculator's on. To do square root, you're going to hit the green second button. I should say second up at the top, that's how you know you've hit it. Then you're going to come straight down until you see the x squared button. If you will click that, you should see a radical symbol, which means square root. So if we were to do the square root of 36, I can now type 36, and when I hit enter, I know that's backwards still, it is 6. Okay, so in a little bit we'll do cube root, so I'm going to go ahead and show you that as well. How you do cube root is you have to hit the 3 first. Then hit this green second button, and instead of hitting the same x squared button, if you look right above it, you'll see a little up arrow or a house. In green, you should see x radical. That will show you now cube root. So if we did the cube root of 64. I did that backwards. Hold on, it's hard for me to look at this backwards. 64. And hit enter. It gives us 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So that's how you do cube root and square root. Sorry, it keeps going back and forth because I'm too close. But I just wanted to show you, so again, on the calculator, to do square root, hit the green second button and the x squared button. Then type in your number. To do cube root, hit the 3, the green second button, and the up arrow for cube root. Okay, so now we'll look at example 1. Okay, so looking at this first example, we have 4 problems. A says the square root of 9. So that should be pretty easy to know what times itself equals 9. But you can plug it in your calculator to make sure you're plugging it in right. The square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 equals 9. Square root undoes a square. What I mean by that is if I have 3 squared to the second power, that's where the term squared comes from, because that means 3 times 3, which equals 9. So going backwards, the square root, so if I had 3 to the second power and the square root of that, they cancel. They're exact opposites. 3 to the second power equals 9, so therefore the square root of 9 equals 3. They're exact opposites. So anyway, so it equals 9. On B, we have negative square root of 64. The negative is out front, so you take the square root of 64, and that basically means times negative 1. The negative is going to stay there. The square root of 64 is 8, so that is negative 8. Now, on C, so we have plus minus the square root of 4 is what that means. So that means they want both the positive and the negative answer of the square root of 4. Because they'll use 2, and I'll do it again whenever I'm showing you your problems. When you have 2 times 2, sorry, that was supposed to be a parenthesis, that equals 4, okay? But if you have negative 2 times negative 2, that also equals 4. Both of those equal positive 4. So when we're taking the square root of 4, when we know 2 times 2 equals 4, and so does negative 2 times negative 2, that means technically there's really 2 answers. There's the positive 2 and the negative 2. It's just normally, like on A, we only ever want the positive one. So when they say plus minus, that means they want both answers. So the answer to that is plus minus 2. On D, we have the square root of negative 81. So the answer to this is no solution. You can draw like a 0 with a slash through it. Hold on, let me draw a little better one. Like that. That means no solution, because there's no way you could have one number times itself and it equal negative 81. 9 times 9 is positive 81. Negative 9 times negative 9 is still positive 81. So there's no way we could get negative 81 that has a perfect square. So what I want you to do is I want you to try all 4 of these problems. You'll pause the video to work them out, and then I will work them out for you. Okay, so these should have been pretty easy because we can plug them in the calculator. So 1A, the square root of 49, if you plug that in your calculator, it is 7. Or that one's pretty easy to do in your head. We know 7 times 7 is 49. So on 1b, we have negative square root of 16. Since the negative is outside, you do the square root of 16 first, which is 4, and I still have that negative. So it's negative 4. On c, we have plus minus square root of 400. Now, just to recap again, like I just said, when you have plus minus square root, that means they want the positive and negative answer, because 400, if you plug in what the square root of 400 is, it's 20. 20 times 20 is 400. When it says plus minus, that means they want both answers, but rather than writing 20 and negative 20, we just put plus minus 20. That means both of them. Because if I did negative 20 times negative 20, that equals positive 400. If I did 20 times 20, that also equals positive 400. So when we have square root of a number, we actually don't know if they were both positive or both negative. So we normally just only do the positive answer like we did over here on the square root of 49. But since it says plus minus, that means they want both. So our answer is plus minus 20. Okay, now square root of negative 49. The answer to that one is no solution. There's absolutely no way you can multiply the same number by itself and get a negative answer. So now let's look at example 2. Okay, on example 2, we are estimating. So for this, you don't need the calculator, or we're not going to use the calculator. So the square root of 33 does not have an exact square. So when we're estimating, you're just going to look at numbers around it. So for example, we know 5 times 5 is 25. So if I took the square root of 25, I would get 5. That's close to 33. Well, the next number would be 6. 6 times 6 is 36. And that's above 33. So we know it's going to be between 5 and 6. So all you do is you look at which one it's closer to. 33 is closer to 36. So our answer is going to be approximately 6. Now, how you do approximately? It's little squiggles. If you look down here, you can see what it looks like. Little squiggles, okay? That means approximately, not exactly, but close to 6. And that would be your answer. That's all you do on this. You're not plugging this in the calculator. You're just estimating what it's close to. So I want you, let me switch back to my arrow. Oops, wrong way. You are going to do 2A and 2D. You don't have to do all 4 of these, just the 2 that are circled. 2A and 2D. Okay, on example 2, I don't want you using a calculator on these. So what we're having to do is we're estimating. So square root of 60. Now that's not a nice number, so we look at what it's close to. So I know, if you don't, just think of numbers. So if I did 6 times 6, that's 36. That's still kind of far from 60. 7 times 7 is 49. We're getting closer. 8 times 8 is 64. So now I've gone past it. So I know it's between 7 and 8. Because 7 times 7 is 49, 8 times 8 is 64. So if I took the square root of these, I would get that number. So the square root of 60 is somewhere between 7 and 8. So since 60 is closer to 64 than it is to 49, you would say that it's approximately 8. That means it's not exactly equal to, but it's kinda, that's what that symbol means. It's close to it. So approximately 8. So if I come over here to the square root of negative square root of 79. Sorry, I almost said that wrong. So we know it's going to be negative. Now look at 79. Well, we already knew from this previous problem, 8 times 8 is 64. That's pretty close to it. So 9 times 9 is 81. So it's going to be between 8 and 9. Because the square root of these are what equals 8 and 9, and it's between that. So 79 is closer to 81, and it is negative, so this is approximately negative 9, because that's what it's closest to on a number line. Okay, so the next one we have is example 3. Okay, so I know I just said we were going to example 3, but we're not going to look at example 3 today. It's a word problem. We're going to move on to example 4. So now we're looking at cube root. So remember I showed you how to do that on the calculator. You hit the 3 first, the green second button, then you hit the little up arrow. So we have the cube root of 343. So if you plug that in your calculator, easy peasy, it is 7. because 7 times 7 times 7 is 343, or 7 to the third power. That's why we take the cube root. You're doing the opposite of raising a number to the third power, or cubing it. So it is 7. On B, we have the cube root of negative 729. Now, if this was square root, you can't take the square root of a negative number. Since it is cube root, we can, because, so the example over here, well, if you plug that in your calculator, it's negative 9. But over here is y. Negative 9 to the third power, or negative 9 times negative 9 times negative 9. A negative times a negative is positive. So we have positive 81 here. Then we still have times a negative 9. So a positive times a negative gives us a negative answer, and then it is 729. So when it's a cube root of a negative, your answer is going to be negative. So the cube root of negative 729 is negative 9. So last problems you're going to try today, I want you to do 4A and 4B, and then we'll go over them. Last problems, cube root. Use your calculator. Remember, you hit the 3 first and hit that green second button, and then go straight down and hit the little up arrow. So the cube root of 64, if you plug in your calculator, it's really easy. It is 4. Because 4 times 4 times 4 is what equals 64. On 4B, we have the cube root of negative 1,331. Now, if you remember, when we're doing cube root, you can have a negative in there, because you're multiplying 3 numbers. So there is a possibility to get a negative answer. For example, if I have 2, I'll use that. 2 times 2. Sorry, let me do negatives. A negative times a negative is positive, but then I still have times another negative. So you can have a negative in there. So negative, we know when there's a negative in there on cube root, your answer is going to be negative. And the cube root of 1,331 is 11. Again, plug that in your calculator. So it is negative 11.